Hey everybody, I'm Sam Solomon and this is Signal Tower. Today I'm joined by Linda Liukas, who is the author of Hello Ruby, which is a children's book that teaches the fundamentals of programming. Linda is also the co-founder of Rails Girls and the former community manager at Codecademy. Linda, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's start the show. Why don't you tell everybody kind of who you are? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I come from Helsinki, Finland, in the northernmost part of the world. No polar bears here, but like a pretty exotic place to be in. I feel like all of my work kind of happens in the intersection of art and technology and art and people and teaching beginners and stuff like that. And you pretty much summarized everything I am already. But what else? Like a fact about me. I enjoy cooking and running and I have way too many children's books.
Well, that's appropriate, isn't it?
Well,
we'll talk a little bit about Hello Ruby later, but there's an interesting story. Your first experience with web development, you actually built a website for Al Gore.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I was 13 years old and I probably I had this mad crush over the Vice President of the United States, Al Gore. So this was, I think, 2001 or something. And all of my other girlfriends were like madly in love with Orlando Bloom of like Lord of the Rings fame, or Leonardo DiCaprio of Titanic, or stuff like that. And I feel like I probably wanted to be a little bit of like an oddball and special in that sense. And I developed this massive interest in Al Gore. I don't especially like remember why exactly him, but I felt very strongly about his politics and like just his history and like being always in the shadow of Clinton and so forth. And because I wanted to show all of this like excitement and express this like longing and passion, I made a website for him. And because at the time there was no Tumblr or Facebook or Pinterest, I needed to learn to program in order to do that. So I Googled like how to make a website, and I learned about HTML and CSS and a little bit of PHP and like how to set up a server and stuff like that. And when I finally got that website up, I was absolutely amazingly proud about my achievement. So I was like, I made this happen. This is me. And I don't know if it like ever got any visitors or if people found it at all. And it's probably to date like the first and last Finnish Al Gore website there is. But I got the spark to sort of start to experiment with technology from that. And I think still today, programming and technology for me is kind of a means to self-expression and sort of creativity and yeah, expressing yourself. And I feel like a lot of people have, well, not necessarily a lot of people have the same Al Gore experience, but a lot of people who are really passionate in the web design industry nowadays have like a similar beginning for their career, where they find something like a project of their own that satisfies their curiosity and like helps them develop their skills. So yeah, that's how I learned to program.
I've got to ask, is that site still up somewhere?
Thank God, no. I still have a screenshot though. I can send you one of those. It had a very nice iframe system like going on. And
that'll look great. That'll look great on when we post the interview. You've got to send me a screenshot of that. That'll be perfect.
Sure. You marked that.
Yeah,
no.
Initially, after you built that site, your kind of love with web development didn't stick initially, right?
Yeah, I feel like I was interested in so many other things in the world, like philosophy and other boys beyond Al Gore, and like French. I studied social sciences, all of these other things, and I felt like it's a binary decision. Like you're either a math-oriented programmer type of person, or you're this person who can do all of these other things. And at the time, I wanted to do all of these other things. And later in life, I've of course realized that it's in no way binary, that you can totally be a person who's like interested in technology and be interested in arts at the same time. But in the like early 2000s, it wasn't probably that much encouraged. So I did like what many other girls do, and I studied like long French, and I studied history and stuff like that. And it wasn't until 2009 that I really like started programming again. I was taking part in this course in Stanford University, and just like by accident tried Ruby on Rails, which was gaining momentum at the time, and kind of had the same almost tangible feeling of like, wow, I made this happen. Like the computer obeys my commands, and I can do amazing things with it. So like the same exact excitement that I had as a 13-year-old, I rediscovered as a 23-year-old at the time, and I like, yeah, that's how I got started again.
Very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about Rails Girls. You're a co-founder of Rails Girls. How did that program come to be?
So I was in Stanford University SA, and I was soaking up all of the California sun and the Silicon Valley energy and like rediscovering technology. And then I came back to Finland, and it was November, and it was the slush time, and it was like, so I didn't know what I should be doing with my time and stuff like this. And because I had found like Ruby on Rails again, I had recovered like web development, rediscovered web development, and I figured that like there's bound to be other women like me who want to be learning this stuff. So what we did with Kari Saarinen, who's the other co-founder, a guy actually, of Rails Girls, I think in 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, we just set up like this weekend workshop for basically our friends who wanted to learn the basics of Ruby on Rails programming. And we never thought that it would become like anything more than that. It was just something to teach, first of all, myself better at Rails programming, and then like give the same opportunity to other young women and a few guys also to learn the basics. But we did put a lot of effort in sort of the overall feeling of the event. Like we had posters, we had like this bento box exercise where you learn about the concept of web development. We thought a lot about like the curriculum and like the basic philosophy of a Rails Girls event, even though we didn't know that it would end up scaling. So instead of like spending a lot of time on theory, we wanted to focus on the idea that people can build something during one-day workshop. Like they don't necessarily understand all of the intricacies of the scaffolds they are creating or like the theoretical background behind the arrays they make, but they make something visible happen and like meet other the coaches who coach them, and also meet other like-minded women. So for many of the people who take part in Rails Girls events, it's like, wow, there are other females who are as excited about technology as I am. And that's when we thought that that would be it, like that it would be one day event, but something else happened then.
Well, that's interesting. So yeah, because usually, because I was going to ask you, well, you had 2 weeks. How did you figure out like what the curriculum was going to be and things like that? So you just focused on this is what you can build. So it was more not about learning, but showing people what they could do, kind of inspiring people to learn.
Yes. So it was, I think the very original tagline of Rails Girls was web development from concept to code to deployment, and just like giving the first experience in software craftsmanship. So we never sort of claimed that we would teach people to become programmers in one day, which is impossible. But you can give like a first immersive experience of what it is like to do things. And we had design workshops, and we had like all of these little pedagogical things that were built into the program already at the very beginning.
And so your co-founder is a boy, so I have to ask, so are boys allowed?
Boys are definitely allowed. The thing is, with Rails Girls, we've always said that guys can apply too if they bring an interested girl with them, but girls are given a priority. And if I had known, so I was 23 when all of this started, and I felt like a girl at the time, very much so. Now at 28, if I could change the name, I probably would, because I didn't understand that there was such a strong connotation of like, just like the word girl is such a loaded word in certain parts of the world. But like, I feel like Rails Girls overall was always more about like building a grassroots movement of like more colorful, more happy internet, more than gender per se, or like who gets to attend or so forth. And that's why Rails Girls has never been has been always a pretty inclusive event, in the sense that we do take like male coaches. We like, if you're a guy who wants to do something for the diversity problem, you can start a Rails Girls chapter. It's totally okay. So yeah, probably that's sort of the legacy of Kari also being a guy. So it wasn't only a girl thing from the very beginning.
Well, I'm curious also, so now, there's Rails Girls events all over the world, in Asia. How are these events organized? Because you can't be in all of these places at once.
No. So After the first event, I think it was like people started tweeting about the event first of all, and I remember David Heinemeier Hansen, who is the founder of the Rails language, like tweeted that, hey, look at this cool thing that Helsinki people are doing, and I actually printed out that tweet and put it on my wall.
That's pretty incredible.
I've been like a pretty big fangirl always since my Algor days. And then people started like emailing us and asking like, hey, what if you come over here and do a Rails Girls event as well, and so forth. And I think it was November 2010 that a guy from Singapore, Jason Ong, who was a local sort of Ruby active and organized a lot of events, said that, hey, like you should come to Singapore and we should do it over here as like a pilot thing. And me and Kari had never been in Singapore before, so we were like, sure, we'll come over and do this over there. And seeing that the concept worked in an Asian culture where we had never been before gave us kind of a lot of courage that, yeah, like maybe this is something that is not only for our friends, but can be appreciated by other people too. So we started organizing events like by ourselves. I think we did Shanghai, and then we did one in Tallinn, and then one in Berlin, and slowly started to sort of see that, hey, like people were excited about this everywhere. And in 2011, I think, March, we open sourced all of the guides. So all of the materials and sort of instructions on how to make your own Rails Girls chapter are online, starting from like how do you get sponsors, like how do you decorate the place, to like how do you set up Rails, how do you like teach people what is MVC. All of that knowledge was put online, and we figured that because this is way more scalable when people take ownership over their own structures, chapters, we should just like make this a global, worldwide movement. And how it works in practice is that Rails Girls is pretty much as free and wild as the internet itself. We have a mailing list and we have a GitHub repository. And the coaches, they, or the local chapters, they make changes into the GitHub folders and like maintain the content, update it and so forth, but they are really like, they are in charge of their own fundraising, they are in charge of their own chapter, like everything is pretty meritocratic in that sense. And people always ask me like, why didn't you raise funding, and like, why didn't you make this into an organization? And I feel like sometimes, especially people who don't work with the internet, create structure for the sake of structure. And I always felt that Rails Girls has succeeded when there is no need for Rails Girls anymore, when there is one colorful and crazy and happy Ruby community that is inclusive and allows beginners to learn new things. And it would be kind of against that mission to create like this massive Rails Girls organization that tries to teach the whole world to code. Also, if you ever try to send like money to South America, you'll realize why we never ended up doing this centralized organization. So that's how it started to grow, and now it's 227 cities, like pretty much everywhere in the world. And I get like a huge joy just looking at how the chapters grow and sort of create their own success stories, and it's
That's incredible. So that all happened in 5 years or so.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and so let's talk about Hello Ruby, which is your children's book. One thing that's interesting is you're not necessarily an illustrator. You only recently started illustrating, but you were the illustrator for Hello Ruby.
Yes. So Hello Ruby started pretty much actually at the same, when people feel like there's overnight successes, like that's never the case. Hello Ruby's idea started pretty much at the same time as Rails Girls, so 2009, so like almost 5 years ago. I think I even have, I'll send you some pictures, but like from Flickr from like early 2009, that like are the very first drafts of Hello Ruby. And because I was learning programming at the time, and like trying to figure out ways to make it more approachable and fun. So whenever I ran into a problem or a concept that I didn't understand, I would think like, okay, how would a 5-year-old little girl explain this thing? Like, what would garbage collection, like the automatic memory management of like, say, iOS, like how would like a 6-year-old little girl explain this in a way that it made sense? And that's how my little doodle started to like collect together, and for a long time, I just made them for me and my friends. And then like people started to say that those are really good, like you should really publish these and like make this into a thing. And I started to look for an illustrator that would like properly make this happen. And I thought that I'll hire someone to like make, because I didn't feel like I was a very good programmer or a very good pedagogician, a person with pedagogical skills, that I would hire someone to do those parts. And then in the end I realized that no, like, unfortunately, if you have the vision, you need to be the one executing it as well, at least from the, like, in the beginning. So that's when I needed to learn to draw. And it's been a very painful road, almost as painful as programming, but.
And I guess, so are you drawing by hand? Are you drawing in a tool like Adobe Illustrator? How?
Yeah. I'll send you, I wrote actually like a long blog post about my whole process of drawing and like what I've learned and like the sort of resources that I've found helpful. And this is the most intense part about, since the Kickstarter, there's like 10,000 people following my whole journey of becoming a children's book author. So they see me stumble and fall in my process. But what I basically do is I have a Cintiq, this like, this Wacom Cintiq.
Wacom.
Wacom, yes,
yeah.
like a board where I draw, and then I use Photoshop. And one huge lifesaver for me has been Kyle Webster, this guy who makes these amazing custom brushes that make it look like it's watercolors or something else. So
very
yay,
cool.
Internet.
Yeah, the internet, right? Well, so let's talk about that Kickstarter campaign, because that's something that's pretty impressive. You set out to raise $10,000 and ended up raising like $380,000, something like that. That's incredible. What were your expectations going into that Kickstarter campaign?
So I had been talking to my friends about this book and like how someone should make it happen, and friends would tell me that like, no, you should make it happen. And then I had pretty much settled into the idea that yes, I like need to put out time. And I had recently left Codecademy at the time and sort of figuring out what I should do next. And I figured that like this is going to be a super nice art project here in between things that I'm going to do and sort of make it happen. And really that was what it was supposed to be, an art project. And the 10,000 was to cover like a print run of 500 books or something like that. And I remember like I put it out on like, it was Friday morning or Thursday morning, and within the 24 first hours, it was over $100,000, so 10 times like the amount. And I was, I think my life just changed, and that's true. And like it's been a very interesting and intense ride after the campaign, but definitely I feel like I owe it to all the people who helped me like support my vision and idea and like actually made me into a children's book author. Before that I was just jokingly saying that I'm going to become a children's book author, but now it's real. Yay, internet.
So before the Kickstarter project, you were at Codecademy, and you left, and that you had planned to basically do that. I left to work on this children's book.
No, I left to go work in like because I'm originally from Helsinki. I had family and friends over here and boyfriend and all of that stuff, and I figured that it's my time to go back home. And I thought that I would go work in like a real company or like a real business, and this was just supposed to be like a side project for me. And I started doing 24 days of Ruby, like a Christmas calendar. So I would, every single day I would draw a little like drawing in December. And after doing that for 24 days, I felt like, yeah, maybe I have like enough here to make a proper Kickstarter campaign. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Well, so I guess let's go back and kind of recount that very first day on Kickstarter. What was that like? You put it out there. I guess, did you go to work and just came back and there was you had a million emails? What was that like?
So probably like recapping a little bit, like even before that, one thing that people do seem to forget is that like, making a Kickstarter is like actually a massive amount of work, like just getting everything to go. And since you're kind of like Kickstarter by itself doesn't provide you with a lot of instruction, there's this like empty text field, and that's where you're supposed to write down your vision. And like when I started this whole process, I didn't even have words to like explain what I'm doing, because I was doing something totally new, and it was scary and exhilarating and exciting all the same. So it took a long while to like get all of the pieces in place, and I actually wrote like a long blog post about the whole experience of like what I did and what did I look for and who helped me and stuff like that. So that took a long while, and probably pressing like because I had been doing this for like several months, not full time, but just like as a hobby thing, and as time went along. And pressing publish was probably like one of the scariest things I did, because there was kind of a chance that no one would be interested in this, even though like well, a lot of people ask like, was it a kind of like an overnight success, that just like, how did it go viral and how did it end up being so popular? But I do strongly believe that there was a lot of value in the fact that I had worked in this space for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, worked with all of the Rails Ghost chapters, like asked for their feedback, like spoken to every single person I know about the book thing and like how I want to make it a reality. And I think that was sort of the core group of supporters who helped me during those first 24 hours, those first crazy 24 hours to like go beyond my wildest dreams in the campaign. So yeah. And the thing that people don't tell you about the Kickstarter campaign is, or maybe they do, but that was new for me, is that the Kickstarter app has like a push notification. So it basically like blinks every time someone backs your project. And during the first, I was in a business meeting actually at our Ministry of Education talking about like some other projects I was working on at the time. And then I showed them like, look, my phone is going absolutely crazy, because they would be like blink, 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 people backing it. So it was weird, and I didn't sleep very much during those first weeks. So
that's funny, and understandably. Well, so I guess kind of going actually into the book, you know, like, what does it take to spark an interest in programming for kids?
I think people who've taught. So first of all, let me start by saying that computer science is the most exciting field there is. There's like such a massive like change that has happened in the past 20 years, where computer scientists have like created these layers and layers upon each other of abstraction, and like shielded us consumers from so many of the things that we don't like, so that we can use the iPhones and make the applications we have nowadays. But this kind of means that we as consumers don't have any idea of what is happening inside of the phone. And like traditionally, the people who have taught computer science or who have taught programming have been a very sort of similar group of people in some sense. It's like a homogeneous group of people. So my idea was to sort of try to like explore computer science and programming from a different angle, mainly through the angle of storytelling. So Hello Ruby is a book about a little girl called Ruby who travels around the world and solves problems with all of her friends, like the snow leopard, who's very beautiful but doesn't want to play with the messy other kids, which is kind of a representation of Apple in some sense, and the androids and the Firefoxes, and meets all of these quirky characters, because for me technology has been very profoundly human, and like I've always seen the human influence in technology and stories within the world of technology and programming. And for some reason other people always think that it's very mechanical and cold and like number oriented. No, it's like words and people and interactions and logic, but logic can be beautiful too. So that's sort of the philosophical background. And in more practice, I feel like with Hello Ruby I'm trying to look into sort of spiral learning, meaning that even though you wouldn't understand, or even though you wouldn't be able to write in Ruby code, like what an array, like a array, for instance, in Ruby, or a loop, or a sequence of commands, you can still learn about the principles of those things early on. So even for a 5-year-old, it would be understandable, like to understand the concept of loop through like a exercise, they repeat something 5 times, or make their mom repeat something, like clap their hands 5 times or stuff like that. Or let me come up with a better idea. Or say have an exercise where you need to select clothes based on the weather. So if it's sunny outside, like it seems to be here now today, choose these colors, else choose these colors. So kind of familiarize yourself with the very basics of computational thinking and programming, even before you like actually learn the words and the theoretical background for those things.
And so I'm curious, do you think that learning to program, or at least this logic associated with programming, is as important as it is to learn how to read?
No, I would say, let me move so that the sun doesn't like shoot me. So I would say, let me see. I think every child has the right to learn about how computers work and how to instruct computers in the same sense as we teach kids how our body works, or how space works, or how to recognize different species of trees from one another. But in no way everyone should become a programmer. In no way should we all learn everything about programming in schools. There's a vast array of other things in life that you can be interested in, but more and more of the world we live in is run by software, and it's kind of we shouldn't treat it as such a magical and foreign place where only the bravest of engineers can go into. It's for everyone, and if people saw computers as a tool of creativity instead of a machine that runs our lives, I think there would be a more gentle, kinder internet in some senses too.
Well, I've got a couple questions here, and unfortunately, I've got to head to work pretty soon.
Wow.
But you've spoken at several conferences. How did that start? Did someone come ask you to speak? Did you put yourself out there? Did you say, "Hey, I'd like to come talk at this thing"? How did that start?
Let me think. So I did spoken word poetry when I was younger, and that kind of gave me the confidence probably to go on a stage. But I'm still the worst public speaker ever. I need to practice so much, and I never improvise on stage, and I get so nervous before going on stage. So that's one thing that no one is ever ready. So I just throw myself at these situations. I'm oh, what did I do? Why did I promise this? And now I need to do this. So do something before you're ready is definitely one lesson I learned. And let me see what else. Start small. I feel just by talking at a lot of Rails Goes events, for instance, gave me the confidence to speak in English first of all, and then build from that. Yeah, but I honestly I don't know what's the answer, and probably just that female speakers are so rare that it's also sometimes. How do I say this without sounding bad? But sometimes it's an added benefit that you are actually a woman and you can speak about your own profession in an exciting, intelligent way and have a very specific angle into it. And that's there's so many other things that go against women that it's worth benefiting and enjoying some of the things that do work in our advantage.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, what advice do you have for someone who's trying to learn how to program right now?
So the internet is pretty much made of advice of how to make the internet, and there's this seriously, it's hard to understand for someone who comes from not our industry, where they come from say construction work, and you need to have a very specific, you need to go to the library and you need to have a mentor who teaches you these things. But internet is full of instructions, and people are really helpful, and real programmers, they Google for things too, and they don't have all of the answers. So sort of learning to rely on your own ability to solve problems is probably one of the most important attitudes I would take. Then the second thing is it's repetition. Nobody anticipates being able to speak French fluently after attending 1 weekend workshop in French language or 6-week intensive course. It's a lifetime practice of working together. And if that skill and real system sounds exhilarating, I would recommend finding a group of people who are also excited about learning to program. So for instance, the Ruby community is amazing in the sense that it arranges a lot of meetings, meetups, a lot of events where beginners are totally welcome to join. So finding a peer group of, so first of all, being a problem solver, finding a peer group of people who can help you, and third of all, probably having a project that you're really fascinated by, and that forces you to learn more, and that you want to see happen in the world. So making something real, that choosing a problem that is a problem in your life and somehow trying to solve it with programming, at least for me, has been one of the most effective ways to learn.
And I love what you said earlier. The internet is full of instructions about how to build the internet. That's fantastic. And what about people who are parents who want their kids to learn how to program? how should they encourage them?
I think one of the important things I've learned about is that like it's about the attitude kids have towards programming. So not necessarily like kids are the most efficient learners in the world. Like they learn so much so fast when they are motivated, and when they are not motivated, it's like no, nothing's happening. So finding what motivates that specific kid and what is their interest in technology. Like maybe it's making a game, maybe it's something else. And there's this wonderful organization called code.org, which is a US nonprofit that has collated a lot of like great resources like Codecademy, like Khan Academy, that teach programming skills. So I would head over there, and they have a good like structure of finding whether your kid is like under 6 or under 12 or so forth. One of the exercises I do with little kids is building a paper computer, and I just put the instructions online where, and I'll send you the picture of this, but we built like a real computer out of paper, and put in like the little smiling CPU and the hard drive and the GPU and like the ROM,
all the hardware pieces.
Yeah, all the hardware pieces. So we actually like build a little laptop that out of paper that you can have it. Like my first laptop is the name of the thing. And then the other thing the kids do is they design a web application for this little computer. And when we first talk with kids, like what they know, like what applications they know, they are pretty like, oh, I know like Angry Birds, or I know like maybe some sort of a word processor. But then when we start to really think about like what is a computer and how can you use computer in your play, they start to talk about, oh, like we could play moms and dads, and like dad works on a computer. I'm like, yeah, that's good, but like can we think a little bit further? And that's when the kids start to get really creative. And so for instance, I've had this little girl who wanted to be a dolphin doctor when she grows up, and she designed her very first, like just by drawing, but still like had that right mindset, her first dolphin health application where she can monitor her future dolphin patients and their sort of stats. And I had this little boy who has this game with his father where the father is an astronaut and the boy is sort of a mission control man, and he has these like big headphones on and he commands his father in the like outer orbits of Mars. But now we designed like this intergalactic planetary observation app where he can manage his father with his little paper laptop. And all of those things, they sound ridiculous, but they help the kid to see sort of technology in a more creative way, and a computer as a part of their play and as a part of their activities, like in their imagination world and so forth, instead of only seeing a computer as this machine where their parents spend too much time on, and really take ownership over sort of the world they create, or the digital world they create. And I think that's like the most important thing that a parent can do, is spark that imagination. The rest will come. Like there's wonderful resources online for even the tiniest kids to learn programming, but that sort of attitude comes from the home.
Those are fantastic. I love that. I love the paper computer concept. You've got to send me some pictures of kids putting that together.
And that's the most amazing part. Now people have started to send back me pictures of like their kids
working on a paper computer.
Yeah, and like just what kind of plays they've come up with the idea. Like one little girl was saying that the CPU is fuming. Like we need to fix it up. And his parent like those kids are going to grow up with a different like attitude towards technology than my generation, where we are like, oh, like I'm going to break this computer or something. So
that's funny.
Don't let me get started on Minecraft, because that's going to be like a long story. But that too is doing amazing things for the kids.
Well, maybe we'll save that for another day.
Yeah. True.
So you've obviously achieved a lot. I'm curious, after Hello Ruby is published, what's next for you?
So I feel like I'm in a lucky position where I don't have like a VC saying that you need to make a huge profit out of this, or I don't have like I have my audience and the people who believe in me for the Kickstarter project, which means that I have the time and sort of the focus to be able to make products that are like absolutely magical and like quality products that people will enjoy hopefully for years to come. And I feel like I've only scratched the surface of the like stuff that I want to end up doing. So with Ruby, I have probably like 3 or 4 different kinds of books in my head. Like I want to make a book about how to follow an HTTP request, like the journey it makes when we press enter on our computer and before it hits like the servers of Google, like what kind of things it sees. And I want to make an art show where you crawl inside of a computer and like see how it works from the inside. I want to make a mobile app that like explores the relationship of play and like learning to program, stuff like that. So, and I have sort of the resources and the time and the support also from the community to be doing that. It's pretty amazing. I wish to be doing this for the next 20 years. So.
Well, I wish you do that too. Well, so this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm curious, where can people follow you?
I'm pretty active on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/Linda Liukas, and there's helloruby.com where I post some pictures, and like I've been learning about GIF animation lately, so you can see a lot of those there. And also about like the backer updates for Kickstarter, where I tell about my journey in becoming a children's book author. Those probably.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.